I thought I'd found peace in Thailand. After years in Perth, I was just tired of the quiet, the empty kitchen chairs, the way the house felt colder after the divorce. I used to walk past the family photos on the wall and feel like I was looking at someone else's life. My kids had their own worlds now. Calls came less often, and when they did, it was all small talk, polite, careful, like they didn't want to stay too long on the line. Then one night, I got an email from someone who's been following this channel for a few months. He said he knew that silence too, the kind that hums in the background even when the TV's on. He told me he found this channel while searching for something to fill the late nights, and somehow, the stories here helped him understand his own loneliness a little better. Reading his message stopped me in my tracks. For a moment, I felt seen, like maybe all the pain we share out loud actually lands somewhere. But then that warmth gave way to a heaviness, the kind that reminds you peace doesn't come easy out here. It has to be earned. Before we start tonight's story, I just want to say thank you to every single one of you who watches, comments, and shares where you're from. Whether you've been here since the beginning or just stumbled across this channel recently, your support means more than you know. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. In Phuket, the sun, the people, her smile, they made me believe in love again. Palin said I made her feel safe. She said I was different from the others. And when she cried, saying her mother was sick, I believed her. When she asked for help, I sent it. When she said she loved me, I gave her everything. 6 months later, I was sitting alone in the same hotel lobby, watching her walk past me with another man's arm around her waist. Thailand didn't just take my money. It took the last bit of faith I had in love. The humidity hit me first when I stepped off the plane at Phuket International. Thick, warm air that wrapped around me like a wet towel, making my shirt cling to my back within seconds. I'd sold my contracting business 3 months earlier, signed the final divorce papers 2 weeks after that, and bought a one-way ticket the same day. 61 years old and starting over. The thought terrified me, but staying in Perth terrified me more. The house had become a mausoleum of failed dreams. Every room held memories I wanted to forget. Sharon's coffee cup still sat in the cabinet. My son's high school football trophy gathered dust on the mantel. My daughter's childhood drawings were still stuck to the fridge with magnets shaped like kangaroos. I couldn't bring myself to throw any of it away, but I couldn't stand looking at it either. So I left, packed 2 suitcases, listed the house with a realtor, and disappeared. The taxi driver spoke broken English, pointing at temples and beaches as we drove through the chaotic streets of Phuket. Motorbikes weaved between cars, vendors sold fruit from carts on the sidewalk, and tourists stumbled out of bars even though it was only 3 in the afternoon. "You first time Thailand?" the driver asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. I nodded. "First time," he grinned. "You love it here." Everybody loved Thailand. Beautiful beach, beautiful women, beautiful life. I gave him a weak smile. Not sure I believed him. Beautiful life. That's what I was hoping for. But hope felt like a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. When we pulled up to the Coral Bay Resort, a small boutique hotel tucked away from the main tourist strip near Patong Beach, I felt my chest loosen slightly. Palm trees swayed in the breeze. The ocean whispered somewhere beyond the property. Maybe this could work. Maybe I could finally breathe again. I dragged my suitcase through the entrance, the wheels catching on the polished marble floor, and that's when I heard her voice. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Coral Bay Resort." I looked up from fumbling with my passport and saw her standing behind the reception desk. She was petite, maybe 5'2", with long black hair pulled into a neat ponytail. Her uniform was crisp, navy blue with gold buttons, and her smile was warm without being fake. I'd been around enough service workers to know the difference. Most smile because they have to. Hers reached her eyes, crinkling the corners in a way that made her seem genuinely happy to see me. "Thank you," I said, handing over my documents. My hands were shaking slightly, though I tried to hide it. She glanced at my passport photo and laughed softly, covering her mouth with her hand. "You look more handsome now, Kun Martin." I felt my face flush, heat creeping up my neck. It had been years since anyone called me handsome. Sharon used to, back when we first met, but that was a lifetime ago. "I think the camera just hated me that day," I replied, trying to sound casual. She typed something into the computer, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard, then handed me a room key with both hands, accompanied by a small bow. "If you need anything, please ask me. My name is Palin." I repeated her name quietly, testing the syllables on my tongue. "Palin. Thank you." That first night, I couldn't sleep. The bed was comfortable, the air conditioning hummed gently, and the room smelled faintly of jasmine, but my mind refused to shut down. I kept replaying the past year like a movie I couldn't turn off. Sharon's lawyer sitting across from me at the mediation, sliding papers across the mahogany table with a practiced efficiency that made me feel like just another case file. My daughter Emily saying she needed space, that I'd been distant for too long, that she couldn't remember the last time we'd had a real conversation. My son James barely looking at me during our last dinner together, his eyes glued to his phone while I tried to make small talk about his job, his girlfriend, anything to keep him at the table a few minutes longer. I'd worked 60-hour weeks for 30 years to give them a good life, to pay for their private schools and family vacations and college tuitions, and somehow I'd missed the part where I was supposed to be present for it. Now I was alone in a foreign country, trying to convince myself this wasn't just running away. Around 3 a.m, I finally drifted off, and when I woke, sunlight was streaming through the curtains, bright and unforgiving. I showered, dressed in shorts and a linen shirt, and headed downstairs, following the smell of coffee and fresh fruit. The breakfast buffet was set up near the pool, under a covered pavilion with ceiling fans lazily turning overhead. I grabbed a plate of scrambled eggs and toast, poured myself a black coffee, and found a table in the corner where I could watch the other guests without having to interact. Mostly European couples, a few families with small children, and several solo travelers like me, though most of them looked younger, backpacker types with worn hiking boots and UNESCO t-shirts. That's when I heard her voice again. "Good morning, Kun Martin. You sleep well?" I turned and saw Palin walking past with a clipboard, checking something off a list. She wasn't working the front desk this early, but she'd remembered my name. The realization made my chest feel strange, tight but not unpleasant. "Morning," I said, surprised. "Yeah, eventually. The room's great." She smiled, that same genuine warmth from the night before, and continued walking. But something about that small interaction stayed with me all morning. She'd remembered my name. Out of probably 50 guests, she'd remembered mine. Over the next few days, it became a pattern. Every morning, she'd greet me by name. She remembered I took my coffee black, no sugar. She asked how I was adjusting to the heat, if I needed recommendations for restaurants, if I'd visited the temples yet. Small things, but they added up. By the end of the first week, I started timing my trips to the lobby to coincide with her shifts. I told myself I was just being friendly, that I appreciated good customer service. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I was lonely, desperately so, and she made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. I started bringing my book to the lobby instead of reading in my room, hoping she'd stop by during her break. Sometimes she did. We'd talk about simple things, the weather, her favorite beaches, my impressions of Thailand, nothing deep, nothing personal. But every conversation felt like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of the isolation I'd been drowning in. One evening, about 10 days into my stay, I was sitting in the lobby reading a thriller I'd picked up at the airport when Palin approached. Her shift had just ended, and she'd changed out of her uniform into jeans and a simple white blouse. Her hair was down now, falling past her shoulders in glossy black waves. "Kun Martin, may I sit?" She gestured to the chair across from me. I set my book down immediately. "Of course, please." She sat, folding her hands in her lap, and I noticed her nails were painted a pale pink. "You read every night here. You don't go out?" I shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. I'm not really the nightlife type. Too old for clubs, too tired for bars. She laughed, a soft musical sound that made me smile despite myself. "You not old, you just need good guide. Patong Beach is tourist trap, loud, expensive, fake. I show you real Thailand if you want." I blinked, caught off guard by the offer. "You'd do that?" She nodded. "Tomorrow, after my shift, I take you to night market, real food, not hotel food. You try some tam pad krapao mango sticky rice." I felt something stir in my chest, a flicker of excitement I hadn't felt in years. "I'd really like that," I said. trying to keep my voice steady. She stood, gave me that same small bow, and walked toward the exit. I watched her go, wondering what I'd just agreed to, wondering if this was the beginning of something or if I was reading too much into a simple act of kindness. The next evening, she met me outside the hotel at 7 sharp. She'd borrowed a friend's scooter, a beat-up Honda with a cracked mirror and a faded red seat. I climbed on behind her, gripping the sides nervously as she navigated through traffic. The streets were insane. Cars honking, motorbikes cutting in front of us, pedestrians darting across the road without looking. But Palin drove with confidence, weaving through the chaos like she'd been doing it her whole life. The night market was complete sensory overload. Vendors shouting in Thai, tourists haggling in broken English, the smell of grilled meat and fried noodles and sweet coconut filling the air. Music blared from speakers, competing with the hum of generators powering the stalls. Palin led me through the crowd, stopping at stalls to order food I couldn't pronounce. "Try this," she said, handing me a skewer of grilled pork, marinated in something dark and sticky. "And this?" "Some tam. Very spicy, but good for stomach." I bit into the papaya salad, and my mouth immediately caught fire. I coughed, eyes watering, and she laughed, handing me a bottle of water. "You okay?" I nodded, gasping. "That's got a serious kick." She grinned, clearly amused. "You survive. That mean you strong." We spent 2 hours wandering the market, sampling food from different stalls. She taught me basic Thai phrases, correcting my pronunciation with patience I didn't deserve. "Sawadi krap." That mean hello. "Kop kun krap." That mean thank you. "Say it." I tried, mangling the tones, and she giggled. "Better. You practice more." When I tried to pay for our food, she refused, physically blocking me from handing money to the vendor. "You are guest. I am host. This is Thai way." I insisted, slipping money to the vendor when she turned to order more food. On the ride back, she drove slower, and I found myself relaxing, the warm night air rushing past us, carrying the scent of the ocean. When we pulled up to the hotel, she turned to me, her expression more serious. "Thank you, Kun Martin. Tonight I have fun." I smiled. "Me, too. Really, we should do it again." She nodded. "Yes, we do again." And we did. Over the next 2 weeks, we fell into an easy rhythm that felt almost natural, like we'd known each other longer than we had. She'd finish her shift, and we'd explore together. She took me to a temple in the hills where monks in saffron robes chanted at sunset, their voices echoing off the stone walls. We visited a floating market where vendors sold fruit from wooden boats, paddling through murky canals lined with stilted houses. One afternoon, we rented kayaks and paddled through mangroves, the water so clear I could see fish darting beneath us, their silver scales catching the sunlight. During one of these outings, we sat on a quiet beach, away from the tourist crowds, watching the waves roll in. The sand was warm beneath my feet, and the sky was beginning to turn orange. She told me about her childhood in Chiang Rai, how her father died when she was 12, leaving her mother to raise her and her younger brother alone. "I work many jobs," she said quietly, tracing patterns in the sand with her finger. "Waitress, cleaner, shop girl, send money home every month. My brother, he study at university now in Bangkok. He want to be teacher. I am very proud of him." I listened, feeling a strange protectiveness wash over me. "You've done a lot for your family." "That's incredible." She looked at me, her eyes soft and tired. "Family is everything. In Thailand, we take care of each other, you understand this?" I thought about my own family, scattered across Australia, barely speaking to me, and felt a pang of shame. "I wish I'd understood that sooner," I said quietly. "I spent so much time working, trying to provide, that I forgot to actually be there." She reached over and placed her hand on mine. It was the first time she'd touched me beyond a polite handshake or a steadying hand getting off the scooter. Her fingers were small, delicate, but her grip was firm. "You are good man, Kun Martin. You just meet wrong woman. Your wife, she don't understand you." Those words hit me harder than they should have. I hadn't told her much about my divorce, just that it happened and it was messy and I needed to get away. But somehow, she understood. Or at least, She made me feel like she did. I turned my hand over, lacing my fingers through hers. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick. We sat like that for a long time, the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. That night, back in my hotel room, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she laughed, throwing her head back without self-consciousness. The way she listened, really listened, when I talked about my kids or my failed marriage or my fear of growing old alone. The way she made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just another divorced expat looking for cheap living and easy company. I knew I was falling for her, but I couldn't stop myself. Didn't want to. My 3-week stay was coming to an end, and the thought of leaving made my chest ache in a way that felt almost physical. I mentioned it to Palin one evening over dinner at a small restaurant near the beach, and her face fell. "You go back to Australia?" I nodded, pushing food around my plate. That was the plan. "My visa's almost up." She was quiet for a moment, staring at her plate. "I will miss you, Kun Martin." The words were simple, but the way she said them, with genuine sadness in her voice, made me blurt out something I'd been thinking about for days. "I've been thinking maybe I don't have to go back. Not yet, anyway." Her eyes widened. "What you mean?" I hesitated, suddenly afraid of sounding foolish. "I could extend my visa, rent a condo, stay longer. There's nothing waiting for me in Perth except an empty house and kids who barely call." She reached across the table, taking my hand. "If you stay, I am very happy. More happy than you know." That was all the encouragement I needed. The next day, I spoke to the hotel manager, a stern-looking woman named Noi who surprisingly warmed up when I explained my situation. She gave me the number of a real estate agent, a friend of hers who specialized in rentals for expats. I contacted a visa service to extend my tourist visa, started the paperwork for a retirement visa, and within a week, I'd found a small one-bedroom condo in Kata Beach, about 20 minutes from the hotel. Sharon would think I'd lost my mind. My kids would probably agree, assuming they bothered to have an opinion at all. But for the first time in years, I felt alive. I felt wanted. I felt like I was making a choice for myself instead of just reacting to everyone else's expectations. I moved into the condo on a Tuesday. It was furnished with basic IKEA-style furniture, had a balcony overlooking the ocean, and cost about a third of what I'd been paying for my mortgage in Perth. Palin helped me move in, which mostly involved unpacking my 2 suitcases and arranging furniture we'd bought at a local market. She picked out colorful throw pillows, a woven rug, and a small Buddha statue for good luck. "Now it feel like home," she said, stepping back to admire our work. I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her waist. "It feels like home because you're here." She rested her head against my chest, and I could feel her heartbeat. "You make me feel safe, Kun Martin. Like I don't have to worry anymore." I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, something floral and sweet. "You'll never have to worry. Not while I'm here." That night she stayed over for the first time. We sat on the balcony, drinking cheap wine from the 7-Eleven down the street and talking about the future. She told me she dreamed of owning her own business, maybe a travel agency for tourists who wanted authentic Thai experiences, not the package tours sold by big companies. I told her I'd help her however I could, that I had savings and time, and a genuine desire to see her succeed. She kissed me then, slow and deliberate, and for the first time in years, I felt wanted. Not needed, not obligated to, wanted. The next 2 months were bliss. We fell into a routine that felt almost domestic. She'd come over after work most nights, and we'd cook dinner together. She taught me how to make pad thai, standing behind me, guiding my hands as I tossed noodles in the wok. She showed me how to make green curry, laughing when I added too much chili and had to chug water straight from the bottle. On her days off, we explored the island. We visited Phi Islands, taking a ferry filled with tourists, and snorkeled in crystal-clear water surrounded by tropical fish. We hiked to viewpoints that overlooked the Andaman Sea, the view so breathtaking it made my chest hurt. We visited the Big Buddha, a massive white statue sitting atop a hill, and she taught me how to pray properly, lighting incense and bowing 3 times. One evening, as we walked along the beach at sunset, she stopped and turned to me. "Kun Martin, you make me happy, more happy than I ever been in my life." I cupped her face in my hands, my thumbs brushing her cheeks. "You've given me a reason to wake up every morning. You've given me hope when I thought I'd lost it forever." She smiled, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read, a flicker of something. Sadness? Guilt? I couldn't tell. "You really love me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't hesitate. "Yes, I really love you." She kissed me then, hard and desperate, but the moment felt fragile, like glass that could shatter if I held it too tightly. The first crack appeared a few weeks later. We were having dinner at my condo, a simple meal of fried rice and chicken, when her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, and her expression changed. The warmth drained from her face, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Panic? Fear? She grabbed the phone quickly. "Sorry, I need to take this." She stepped onto the balcony, closing the sliding door behind her. I watched through the glass as she spoke in rapid Thai, her free hand gesturing wildly. Her voice was muffled, but I could hear the urgency in her tone. Whatever the call was about, it wasn't good. When she came back inside a few minutes later, her eyes were red. "What's wrong?" I asked, standing up from the table. She shook her head, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "My mother. She's sick. She collapsed today at home. My brother, he take her to hospital." My heart sank. "Is she okay? What did the doctor say?" Palin's voice cracked. "I don't know yet. They run tests. But hospital, it cost money. Very expensive. Insurance not cover everything." I reached for her, pulling her into my arms. "How much do you need?" She pulled back, shaking her head quickly. "No, I can't ask you. You already do so much for me. This not your problem." I grabbed her shoulders gently. "Palin, tell me how much." She hesitated, biting her lip. 100,000 baht. Maybe more. Depends on tests. I did the math quickly. About 4,000 Australian dollars. A lot of money, but I had savings. More than enough. "I'll transfer it tonight." Her eyes widened. "No, Martin. I can't take your money. It too much." I pulled out my phone. "You're not taking it. I'm giving it. You do the same for me." She started crying then, covering her face with her hands. "I don't deserve you. I don't deserve this kindness." I pulled her close again. "Don't say that. Family is everything, remember? You taught me that." She left for Chiang Rai the next morning. I drove her to the bus station, a chaotic terminal filled with backpackers and locals hauling oversized bags. She clung to me before boarding, her arms tight around my waist. "Thank you, Kun Martin. I don't know what I'd do without you. You saved my mother. You saved my family." I kissed her forehead. "Just take care of your mom. Text me when you get there, okay?" She nodded, climbing onto the bus. I watched it pull away, disappearing into the morning traffic, and that gnawing worry I'd been pushing down started to settle in my stomach. Over the next 2 weeks, communication was sparse. She'd send a brief text every few days. "Mom, still in hospital. Very tired. Miss you." Or "Tests show heart problem. Need more treatment." I wanted to call, to hear her voice, but she said the reception was bad in her village, that she was spending most of her time at the hospital and could barely keep her phone charged. I told myself she was overwhelmed, dealing with a sick parent, probably scared out of her mind, but doubt crept in anyway, uninvited and persistent. I'd scroll through our old messages, looking for reassurance, for proof that what we had was real. I found nothing concrete, just words, just promises. When she finally returned to Phuket, something had shifted. She came to my condo late one evening, looking exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her clothes wrinkled. I opened the door and wrapped her in my arms immediately, relief flooding through me. "How's your mom?" I asked, pulling her inside. She stepped away, sitting on the couch instead of letting me hold her. "She okay now? Home resting. Doctors say she need to take medicine, change diet, no stress. I sat beside her, reaching for her hand. I'm so glad. You must have been terrified. She nodded but didn't meet my eyes. Thank you for money. You saved her life, Martin. I never forget that. I squeezed her hand. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. You know that. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Over the next few days, she avoided spending the night. She was working extra shifts, she said. The hotel was short-staffed, and she needed to catch up after being gone for 2 weeks. I believed her because I wanted to. But the warmth between us had cooled, and I didn't know how to bring it back. When I tried to kiss her, she'd turn her head slightly so my lips landed on her cheek. When I asked if she wanted to stay over, she'd make an excuse. Too tired tonight. Or have early shift tomorrow. The distance felt deliberate, calculated even, but I couldn't bring myself to confront her. I was terrified of pushing her away completely. One afternoon, I decided to surprise her at the hotel. I bought flowers from a street vendor, bright tropical blooms wrapped in pink paper, and headed to the lobby with a stupid grin on my face. But when I arrived, the front desk was empty. I waited a few minutes, then asked another staff member, a young girl named Sam, where Palin was. Sam looked uncomfortable, shifting her weight from foot to foot. She not working today, I frowned. She told me she had a shift this afternoon. Sam glanced around nervously, like she was afraid of being overheard. Maybe she switched with someone. I not sure, Kuhn Martin. I left the flowers at the desk with a note and walked out, a sick feeling twisting in my gut. That evening, I texted Palin. Came by the hotel today with flowers. They said you weren't working. She replied an hour later. Sorry, I had to run errand for manager. You should call first next time. The message felt cold, dismissive. I stared at my phone, trying to convince myself I was overthinking. But the doubt wouldn't leave. It sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and immovable. A few days later, I ran into Lek, the bartender from the hotel. We'd chatted a few times during my early weeks in Phuket, and he seemed like a decent guy, always quick with a smile and a joke. He saw me sitting alone at a beachside bar, nursing a beer and staring at the ocean, and joined me without asking. Kuhn Martin, you okay? You look sad, my friend. I shrugged, not trusting myself to speak without sounding pathetic. Just a rough week. He ordered a beer, then leaned in, his voice dropping. You still with Palin? I nodded. Yeah. Why? He hesitated, glancing around like he was checking if anyone was listening. I don't want to make trouble, but I hear things. People talk at hotel. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? He looked genuinely uncomfortable, like he regretted bringing it up. She have boyfriend. Farang. Live in Bangkok. Rich guy. He come visit sometimes, stay at different hotel. I see them together once near Central Festival. They look very close. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not true. Someone's spreading lies because they're jealous. Lek held up his hands defensively. Maybe, maybe not. I just tell you what I hear, what I see. You are good man, Martin. Be careful, okay? He finished his beer quickly and left, and I sat there alone, staring at the ocean, my mind racing. The waves crashed against the shore, steady and indifferent, and I felt like I was drowning. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. When Palin came over around 9, I confronted her the moment she walked through the door. Palin, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. She set her bag down, frowning. What is it? You look upset. I took a breath, trying to steady my voice. Are you seeing someone else? Her face went pale, then flushed red. Who tell you that? Sam? Lek? They lie about me because they jealous. I shook my head. It doesn't matter who told me, just answer the question. Are you seeing someone else? Tears welled in her eyes almost instantly. No. I not see anyone. I love only you, Martin. People at hotel, they don't like that I happy. They want to hurt me, make me lose you. She started crying harder, her shoulders shaking, and I felt like the worst person in the world. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have listened to gossip. I don't know, something feels different between us. She grabbed my hands, squeezing tight. You are only one I love. Please believe me. I work hard to help my family, and people think bad things because I am Thai woman with farang man. But I am not like that. I am not bar girl. I am not gold digger. I pulled her close, holding her while she cried. I know. I'm sorry. I do believe you. But even as I held her, even as I whispered apologies and reassurances, the doubt lingered. It sat in the back of my mind like a shadow, growing longer with each passing day. A few weeks later, she brought up the travel agency idea again. We were sitting on my balcony one evening, watching the sunset, when she pulled out a notebook filled with sketches and business plans. I find perfect place for agency, she said, flipping through pages covered in her handwriting. Small shop near Kata Beach. Good location, lots of tourists. Rent is good. But I need money for business license. Furniture, computer, marketing. I looked at the drawings, genuinely impressed by her planning. She'd thought of everything. Logo designs, tour packages, pricing structures. How much are we talking? I asked. She bit her lip, hesitating. 400,000 baht. I know it too much. I don't ask you for money, Martin. I just show you my dream. Maybe someday I save enough. I thought about it. 400,000 baht was about 16,000 Australian dollars. A significant amount, but not devastating. And if it helped her build something for herself, something that could support her family, why not? What if I loan you the money? I said. You can pay me back once the business is running and profitable. Her eyes went wide, her mouth falling open. You serious? You really do this for me? I nodded. Yeah. I believe in you. I think you'd be amazing at this. She threw her arms around me, nearly knocking me off my chair. You are best man I ever meet. I promise. I make you proud. I work hard, pay you back, make business successful. I transferred the money the next day, and within a week she'd signed a lease for the shop. We spent a weekend setting up, painting walls a cheerful yellow, assembling furniture we'd bought from a warehouse in Phuket town. She hung a sign above the door that read, Dream Thailand Tours, in English and Thai. I stood back, admiring it, feeling genuine pride. It's perfect, I said. She kissed me, her eyes shining. This is our dream now. Not just mine, ours. For a few weeks, things felt good again. Better than good. She was excited about the business, showing up at my place with brochures she'd designed, talking about marketing strategies and partnerships with local hotels. I helped where I could, using my project management background to create timelines and budgets. I even designed a simple website, nothing fancy, but functional. We were building something together. Or at least I thought we were. But then the cracks reappeared, wider this time. She started missing our dinner plans. Sorry, I have meeting with tour supplier. Or client, want to see office, have to work late. Or need to visit hotel for partnership. Be back soon. I tried to be understanding. Starting a business was hard. I knew that from experience. But every cancellation stung. Every excuse felt rehearsed. One evening, I drove by the shop unannounced, just to see how things were going, maybe surprise her with dinner. It was closed. The lights were off, and a handwritten sign on the door said closed for holiday, in English and Thai. I checked my phone. She hadn't mentioned taking time off. I texted her. Saw the shop was closed. Everything okay? She replied hours later. Yes, just take few days off. Very tired from working so much. Need rest. I wanted to ask more. Wanted to demand answers. But I was afraid of what I might find out. Afraid of confirming what I already suspected deep down but refused to admit. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd gone to the hotel to pick up some mail they were holding for me, packages from Perth I'd had forwarded. As I walked out of the lobby, I froze. Palin was standing near the taxi stand, about 50 feet away, laughing with a man. He was younger than me, maybe mid-30s, wearing designer jeans and an expensive-looking watch. He said something in Thai, and she laughed, touching his arm in a way that felt too familiar, too comfortable. My heart pounded in my chest. I started walking toward them, each step feeling like I was moving through water. Before I could get close, she saw me. Her face went white, the smile dropping instantly. The man followed her gaze, looked at me, then back at her. He said something quickly in Thai, and she nodded. He walked away, climbing into a black Mercedes with tinted windows. She hurried over to me, her expression a mixture of panic and defiance. "Kun Martin, what you doing here?" I stared at her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who was that?" She crossed her arms defensively. "Client. He asked about tour package for his family." I pointed to the Mercedes pulling away. "That guy needs a tour package? He's driving a car that costs more than your shop." She glared at me. "Why you always suspicious? Why you don't trust me? I work hard, try to make business successful. And you follow me? Check on me like I am criminal?" I felt anger rising, hot and suffocating. "I wasn't following you. I came to pick up mail. But I'm not stupid, Palin. Who is he really?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "I tell you, he is client, rich man from Bangkok. If you don't believe me, that your problem. I can't help that you are insecure old man who think everyone lie." The words hit like a slap. Insecure old man. Is that what I was to her? She turned and walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there, humiliated and furious and heartbroken all at once. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. I texted, called, left voicemails. Nothing. On the 4th day she finally replied. A single message, "I need time. You make me feel like criminal. I work hard every day, and you don't appreciate. You only accuse." I stared at the message, disbelief flooding through me. I'd given her money for her mother, for her business, supported her dreams, and now I was the bad guy? I wanted to fire back an angry response, wanted to tell her exactly what I thought of her lies and manipulations. But instead, I wrote, "I'm sorry. I care about you." And I got scared. "Can we please talk?" She replied hours later. "Okay. I come over tomorrow evening." That night, I barely slept. I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd approach the conversation without sounding accusatory. I'd apologize for doubting her, reassure her that I trusted her, and we'd move past this. But when she arrived the next evening, the woman who walked through my door wasn't the Palin I thought I knew. She was cold, distant, her body language closed off. She sat on the couch, arms crossed, looking everywhere but at me. "Palin, I'm sorry for doubting you." I started, sitting beside her. I just got scared. I've been hurt before, and sometimes that fear takes over. She sighed, a long, exhausted sound. "You always scared, Martin. You think everyone lied to you. You think everyone want to hurt you." I moved closer, reaching for her hand. "That's not fair. I've trusted you with everything. My heart, my money, my future." She pulled her hand away. "Maybe you trust too much. Maybe you want me to be something I'm not." Her words cut deep, each one landing like a physical blow. "What does that mean?" She stood up, grabbing her bag. "It mean I tired. Tired of you checking on me, asking questions, following me. I not your wife. I not your property. I not belong to you." I felt my chest tighten, panic setting in. "I never said you did. I just love you." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and her expression was devoid of warmth. "Love is not enough sometimes. I need space. Don't contact me for a while." She walked toward the door, and I followed. "How long is a while? A few days? A week?" She paused at the threshold. "I don't know. I text you when I'm ready." Then she was gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click that sounded like finality. A week turned into 2. I sent one message, "I'm here when you're ready to talk." She read it immediately but didn't reply. I threw myself into distractions, anything to stop thinking about her. I went to the gym, lifted weights until my muscles screamed. I took long walks on the beach, headphones blasting music to drown out my thoughts. I tried to read, but the words blurred on the page. Every night, I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. What had I done wrong? Where had it fallen apart? Should I have given her more space, less money, more trust? The questions circled endlessly, unanswered and unanswerable. I kept checking her social media, a pathetic habit I couldn't break. She'd posted photos of the shop, smiling with customers. She looked happy, radiant even. Like I didn't exist, like I'd never existed. One evening, I saw a post that made my stomach drop. It was a photo of her at a fancy restaurant in Phuket town, the kind of place with white tablecloths and wine lists longer than novels. She was smiling at the camera, but in the background, barely visible, was the man I'd seen her with. He was turned away, but I'd recognize that watch anywhere. I zoomed in, my hands shaking. It was definitely him. I wanted to confront her, to demand an explanation, but what was the point? She'd already made her choice. I was just too stupid to accept it. A month after our fight, I got a message. Short, clinical, devoid of emotion. Koen Martin, I'm sorry for everything. I can't see you anymore. Please understand. Thank you for everything you do for me. I wish you happy life. I read it 3 times, each time feeling more hollow. I typed a response, my fingers trembling. Did you ever love me? I watched the screen, waiting. The message showed as read almost immediately, but no reply came. Not that night, not the next day, not ever. I deleted her number, blocked her on social media, but it didn't matter. She was already gone, and no amount of deleting or blocking could change that. I'd lost 600,000 baht to her, 4,000 for her mother's hospital bills, 16,000 for the business. But the money wasn't what hurt. It was the realization that I'd been nothing more than a transaction to her, a means to an end, a lonely old man desperate for affection, willing to pay for the illusion of love. The next few weeks were the hardest. I didn't leave the condo much. I ordered food delivery, avoided the hotel, and spent most days on the balcony, staring at the ocean and wondering where it had all gone wrong. Friends back in Perth reached out, probably sensing something was off from my brief, evasive responses to their messages, but I didn't know what to tell them. How do you explain that you fell in love with someone who saw you as an ATM? How do you admit that you ignored every red flag because you were desperate to feel wanted? I couldn't. So I didn't. I just stopped replying altogether. One afternoon, I forced myself to go out. I drove to a cafe in Phuket town that I'd never been to, hoping a change of scenery might shake me out of the fog I'd been living in. I ordered coffee, found a table outside, and watched people pass by. Families, couples, solo travelers with backpacks and guidebooks. Everyone seemed to have purpose, direction. I felt adrift, untethered, like a boat that had lost its anchor. That's when I saw her, Palin, walking down the street with the same man from before. His arm was around her waist, proprietary and comfortable. They were laughing, carefree, like they didn't have a worry in the world. She didn't see me. I was just another face in the crowd, easily overlooked, easily forgotten. I watched them disappear around a corner, and something inside me broke, not in a dramatic, explosive way, more like a quiet surrender. I realized in that moment that I didn't hate her. I was angry, sure, hurt, absolutely. But hate? No. She'd done what she needed to survive. I'd just been too blinded by my own loneliness to see it. She wasn't the villain in my story. She was just a woman trying to make her way in a world that hadn't given her many options. And I'd been a willing participant in my own deception. I decided to leave Phuket. Too many memories, too many reminders of my own stupidity. I packed up the condo, sold most of my furniture to other expats, and moved north to Chiang Mai. It was quieter there, slower. The air was cooler, the people less transient. I rented a small apartment near the old city, in a building filled mostly with long-term expats and Thai families. I started going to a cafe near my place, a little spot run by an older Thai woman named Noi. She didn't speak much English, but she always smiled when I walked in, and her coffee was the best I'd had in Thailand. One day, another expat, an American named David, sat down at my table. Mind if I join you? This place gets crowded around noon. I gestured to the empty chair. Go ahead. We got to talking the way strangers do when they're both far from home. He'd been living in Thailand for 5 years, teaching English and doing freelance writing. When I mentioned, vaguely, that I'd had a rough experience in Phuket, he nodded knowingly. Yeah, man. I've heard that story 100 times. Hell, I lived a version of it myself my first year here. He told me about a woman he'd met in Bangkok, young and beautiful, who said she was studying at university. He'd sent money for her tuition, for her rent, for her sick grandmother. Turned out she'd been dating 3 other foreigners at the same time, all of them believing they were the only one. The thing is, he said, stirring his coffee slowly, it's not always about the money. I mean, yeah, the money matters. But sometimes they do care, in their own way. It's just that survival comes first. It's a different culture, different priorities. Family trumps everything. And if lying to a farang helps the family, then that's what they do. I asked him how he moved past it, how he learned to trust again. He shrugged. I stopped looking for someone to fix me. Started working on myself instead. Took a while, therapy helped, but eventually I realized I'd been chasing affection I couldn't find back home, and that's not fair to me or to them. His words stayed with me. Over the next few months, I focused on myself in ways I never had before. I started volunteering at a local school, teaching English to kids who couldn't afford private tutors. It wasn't glamorous work. The classrooms were hot, the resources were limited, and my Thai was still terrible. But the kids were enthusiastic, their faces lighting up when they learned a new word or mastered a difficult pronunciation. It gave me purpose, something I'd been lacking for years. I made friends with other expats through a hiking group. We'd meet every Saturday morning and trek through the mountains surrounding Chiang Mai, exploring waterfalls and villages that hadn't changed much in decades. The physical exertion helped clear my mind, and the camaraderie reminded me that connection didn't have to be complicated or transactional. I even started sending a little money each month to an orphanage in Chiang Rai, the province where Palin had grown up. Maybe it was my way of balancing things out, of turning something painful into something good. I didn't do it for recognition or to feel better about myself. I did it because I wanted to believe that not everything in Thailand was a transaction, that kindness could exist without expectation. One evening, about 6 months after leaving Phuket, I found myself back on a beach. Not the same one where Palin and I had sat watching sunsets, but close enough. I walked along the shore, the waves lapping at my feet, and I thought about her, not with anger anymore, but with a strange sort of acceptance. I wondered if she was happy, if the business was thriving, if she ever thought about me. Probably not. And that was okay. I'd spent so much time angry at her, at myself, at the situation, that I'd forgotten something important. She hadn't destroyed my faith in love. I'd done that myself by confusing desperation with devotion, by mistaking loneliness for love. I'd handed her my heart without protecting it first, without asking if she even wanted the responsibility of carrying it. That wasn't her fault. It was mine. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that looked almost unreal, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, because that implies she'd wronged me intentionally. More like acceptance. An understanding that we'd both been playing roles in a story neither of us had written. She was trying to survive, to support her family, to carve out a better life in whatever way she could. I was trying to escape my past, to feel relevant again, to prove to myself that I was still capable of being loved. We'd collided at exactly the wrong time. 2 people looking for different things in the same place. She wasn't the villain in my story, neither was I. We were just 2 imperfect people who'd made a mess of something that might have been beautiful under different circumstances. I still live in Chiang Mai. I've made a life here that feels more authentic than anything I had back in Perth. I teach English 3 times a week now. Expanded from twice because the school needed help and I had the time. The kids call me Teacher Martin, and they bring me drawings and handmade cards that I keep in a box under my bed. I hike every weekend with my expat friends, exploring new trails and discovering hidden temples tucked into the mountains. We have dinners together, potlucks where everyone brings something from their home country, and we sit around talking about everything and nothing. Dave, the American I met at the cafe, has become a good friend. We meet for coffee most mornings, and he's teaching me to play chess, though I'm terrible at it. The repetitive losses are strangely therapeutic, a reminder that failure isn't fatal. Some days are harder than others. I'll see a woman with long black hair, and for a second, my heart will skip, or I'll smell jasmine, and I'm back on my balcony in Kata Beach, holding her while she cries about her mother. But then I remember the lessons learned, the pain endured, and the strength it took to keep going. People ask me if I regret coming to Thailand. I don't. I regret the choices I made, sure. I regret not seeing the red flags waving in my face. I regret confusing financial support with emotional intimacy. But I don't regret the experience itself. Because it forced me to confront the man I'd become and decide if I wanted to stay that way. It forced me to look in the mirror and see all the cracks I'd been ignoring for years. The loneliness I'd been carrying since my divorce. The fear that I was fundamentally unlovable. The belief that I had to buy affection because I couldn't earn it naturally. Thailand is paradise to a lot of people. Beautiful beaches, cheap cost of living, endless sunshine, and smiling faces everywhere you turn. But paradise isn't a place. It's a feeling. And feelings can lie. They can make you believe something is real when it's just a reflection of what you desperately want to see. I came here to escape my past, to find peace, to start fresh. What I found instead was a mirror, showing me every flaw, every weakness, every desperate need I'd been carrying for years without acknowledging. And in that reflection, painful as it was, I found something unexpected. Not love, not redemption, but clarity. The understanding that I didn't need someone else to complete me, to validate me, to make me feel worthy. I just needed to stop abandoning myself, to stop running from the hard truths and start facing them head on. I don't hate Palin. I genuinely don't. I don't even hate myself anymore, though that took longer to achieve. I just wish I'd known sooner that love, real love, doesn't cost anything. It doesn't require wire transfers or grand gestures or proving your worth through sacrifice. It simply exists, quiet and patient, waiting for you to be ready. I wasn't ready then. Maybe I'm still not fully ready now, but I'm closer than I was. And that's enough. Thailand gave me heartbreak, yes. It took my money and my dignity and the last remnants of naive hope I'd been clinging to. But it also gave me something invaluable. It gave me the chance to rebuild. To learn that peace doesn't come from running away or finding the right person to fix everything. It comes from finally, after all these years of searching externally, learning to be enough for myself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real paradise I was searching for all along. Not a place on a map, not a person who makes me feel whole, but the quiet understanding that I'm already complete, that I always was, and that anyone who comes into my life should complement that completeness, not create it. I walk along the moat surrounding Chiang Mai's old city sometimes, watching the sunset reflect off the water, and I feel something close to contentment. Not happiness, exactly, because happiness feels too fragile, too dependent on external circumstances. But contentment, a deep, settled feeling that I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to do, becoming exactly who I'm meant to become. The man who arrived in Thailand 16 months ago, broken and desperate and running from himself, is gone. In his place is someone stronger, wiser, more careful with his heart, but also more open to genuine connection when it appears. I've learned to spot the red flags I ignored before. The vague explanations, the requests for money, the emotional distance masked as busy schedules. But I've also learned not to let those lessons turn me cynical or bitter. The world is full of good people and bad people, and mostly people who are just trying their best with limited options. Palin falls into that last category. She did what she had to do, and I paid the price for my own willful blindness. I got an email from Emily, my daughter, last week. It was the first time she'd reached out in months. She said she'd heard from her mother that I was living in Thailand, that she hoped I was doing okay, and that maybe we could talk sometime. Not to fix anything or revisit the past, just to talk. I stared at that email for an hour before responding. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to protect myself from potential hurt, but the bigger part, the part that's been growing stronger these past months, wanted to try. So I wrote back. I told her I'd love to talk, that I understood if she needed time, but that I was here whenever she was ready. She responded the next day. We have a video call scheduled for next week. I don't know what will come of it. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. But the fact that she reached out, that she's willing to try, feels like a small miracle. Like maybe I'm not as alone as I thought. Like maybe the lessons I learned in Thailand about family and connection and putting in the effort are starting to pay off, even if the dividends are small and slow in coming. I've started writing too. Nothing serious, just reflections on my experiences here. Dave suggested it might help process everything. And he was right. Putting words on paper, or screen in this case, forces me to confront things I've been avoiding. To be honest about my role in my own pain. It's uncomfortable work, but necessary. I write early in the mornings, before the heat sets in, sitting on my small balcony with coffee and my laptop. Sometimes I write about Palin, trying to understand her perspective, trying to see her as a whole person instead of just the woman who broke my heart. Sometimes I write about Sharon and my kids, examining where our family fell apart and what role I played in that dissolution. And sometimes I write about the future, imagining what comes next, who I want to become, what kind of life I want to build. Thailand taught me that paradise and pain often exist in the same space. That beauty can hide betrayal. That kindness can be transactional. But it also taught me that healing is possible, that redemption isn't about erasing the past but about learning from it, and that faith in love doesn't have to die just because one relationship did. I still believe in love. Maybe not the desperate, consuming kind I felt with Palin, but something quieter and more sustainable. The kind built on mutual respect and honest communication and shared values. The kind that doesn't require grand gestures or financial proof. The kind that just is, without conditions or expectations. I don't know if I'll find that here in Thailand or if I'll eventually return to Australia. For now, I'm content to stay here, to continue teaching and hiking and volunteering, to continue this slow, often painful process of becoming someone I can be proud of. The man who arrived here was broken. The man who remains is healing. And that difference, small as it might seem, means everything.